The secret to happiness is to align with your soul's wisdom, but daily life often gets in the way. To keep you on your path, join Linda Manning, transformational coach and healer, for spiritual inspiration and interviews with amazing healers and teachers. If you are eager to connect with your soul, excited to travel on inner adventures, and are curious to learn from cutting-edge teachers, then this is the podcast for you.
Welcome back, listeners. This is Linda Manning. I'm so excited to have you here, where we help keep you inspired no matter what crazy stuff is happening in your life. And I have a super special guest today who I'm very excited to introduce you to, and that is Jo Lorei. She's an accomplished facilitator, master coach, and a self-mastery mentor. Do not say that 3 times fast. And she helps everyone get to the next level. That is really her secret sauce. She has over 20 years of experience working with individuals and over a decade of facilitating dynamic group encounters that provide tools and self-awareness to generate success. And I have experienced some of those, and it is super powerful. So Jo uses her intuition, of course, that is perfect for us here, and her deep connection with the human spirit to support others in developing their inner compass and creating energetic, successful lives. So raise your hand if you would love an energetic, successful life. I know I can't see you, but I know you're raising your hands out there. And Jo uses her gifts and her continual development of her skills to forward everyone that she encounters. She's a compassionate mirror. We've talked about this on this before, that other people can be mirrors for us. She's a stealth truth seeker. So we'll have to find out more about that. And she is devoted to living vibrantly. On top of that, if that weren't enough amazingness, Jo has written a book that was just recently published called Practical Inspirations, where the bumper sticker meets the road. And we're going to find out more about this on this podcast. So welcome, Jo.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Linda. I feel so welcome.
Absolutely. So Jo, you mentioned that you are intuitive. And of course, that's one of our things that we talk about a lot on this podcast. So I would love to take you back a little bit into your personal history and talk to me. Was this something that you developed as a child? Is this something that you developed later on? Tell me a little bit about your intuitive journey.
The earliest I have some type of reference for it was the age with which I started to shut it down because it made me weird. So I could hear things other people couldn't hear, and it was like a tuned listener in a way. And just a sense of knowing that if I spoke from that, because it was such an of course to me, and then it got the, what are you talking about? And, I'm not even sure what you mean. And, that kind of nervousness around, and I learned pretty quickly, I shouldn't actually share what's happening in here outwardly, but I could use what was happening. I just didn't talk about it anymore. Right. Like I do remember that as especially from the adults. The adults were confused by it or uncertain about it. And I really don't think, I believe we all are born that way. And then we have conditionings that either enhance our relationship with it, like the work you do, or we're taught, it's not provable. So it causes discomfort in the practical world. Yeah. So there's a really perfect storm of, I believe, some connection to what's greater than us that I have, that I rely on, that I develop all the time. I credit actually growing up in an alcoholic household with my ability to tune in, because I was the peacekeeper and I was to try and get this to avoid this upcoming storm. That was like my job in the family. So that kind of enhanced. So again, that listening beyond the listening, and then how to do that with self so that I could begin to develop that trust for what I'm listening from inside isn't an echo of something that happened. It's actually an inner voice that's speaking from an authentic, true place.
So it sounds like, and I'm sure you are not alone, right? Because many people have had that experience where they got intuitive messages young and other people found that freaked them out a little bit. But what I heard you say is that instead of shutting it down altogether, which a lot of people do, what you did was actually use it on the inside. You still kept that connection, but you're like, sharing it on the outside isn't safe, but I still want to use this wisdom. And from your family, probably having that little, the radar up all the time to, that peacekeeper radar served you very, very powerfully.
Yeah. And it was actually lonely to share it. Like, and I suppose that's still a safety mechanism because we're designed to want to be in a, pack mentality. So loneliness can be deadly. However, that's what I really remember feeling like. It kept me, it set me apart so much that felt lonely and sad. And I did like to be part of things. So yeah. So again, using it instead of talking about it seemed like the logical choice.
Well, and you're right, because of course we're tribal people. We're tribal, as humans, and especially as kids, we're so dependent on other people. Mm-hmm. So sounds like you were a pretty smart young person.
It depends on who you ask. I also thought I could make the world's largest water balloon out of a dry cleaner bag, which did not go well when it broke on the top of the stairs at the second floor of the house, and I flooded the living room. That was not one of my smarter days, but I had my moments.
Very funny in retrospect, though. Probably not so much at the time.
Hilarious in retrospect because it wasn't my house.
So let's fast forward a little. So that was some of your, your early days where you started to tune and you realized you had some messages, but that not everyone would receive them well. And as you grew up, how did that help you? What have you how has your intuition really blossomed from there?
One of the things, like professionally, I jumped around a little bit, wasn't sure what I wanted to do, kind of thing. And, that I'm 57. So even more so back then it was, you had to have that concrete plan. You had to know what you were going to do. You needed to know, to get to school, to get to the next thing, to get to the next thing. And when I realized I was on the wrong path, it gave me some strength to take the heat for the choices I was making. Mm. So I didn't know why I knew. I just knew I knew this isn't for me. And of course, I do kind of believe that there's an ease when you're in something that's, that resonates. Things kind of open up. And when you're not, there's roadblocks, there's agitation. Yeah. It's more effort filled. Yeah. Perfect. And so that was one of the ways. The move to California, like I said, there's these choices that I've made that I didn't have proof, that were 100% faith-based, and that's really where that intuition kind of comes in, is I can't prove this. I just know I know something here. And so that helped me tune it in until, I'm here right now having a life where I have a paid vocation. And I just don't think that there's a better way for someone who's built like me to live.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about that paid vocation, because I'd love to hear more. So I know that you're a transformational trainer. You have worked with many, many groups for a long period of time. So how did you get into that particular role?
As a student, like I encountered a training center in Los Angeles where I was living through some graduates. And I'm like, they were talking about I just remember going to this event and everybody I met looked me in the eye, and everybody at this event had good news. And I'm like, this is really interesting to me, because that is, it was so not the norm that it really struck me. So I jumped in as a student, took the trainings, went, oh my goodness, like what this opened up in my life to be in that level of ownership for results and responsibility and how to activate and, tap into power. And so I began volunteering like a maniac because, if everyone knew this, what kind of world would we have? I really saw that possibility. Yeah. And then from there, it just kind of evolved. I didn't ever set my cap like, oh, I'm going to be a trainer someday. It didn't occur to me. But I kept showing up in a way that I began to recognize I do have some skills and some talents, and have a mentor tap me on the shoulder, got mentored into supporting, and then moved into do leadership workshops. I do work with teens, do embodiment workshop in Grace for Women, working in relationships workshops, have developed some of my own. Pandemic actually kind of pop those out of me, like how to reach out to people with what they were going through, especially that first year. So, and then here it is. So I had a 30-year hair career that I retired from about 4 years ago, that because I was actually doing that the whole time through this journey.
Did you say hair?
Yes, I was a hairstylist, 30 years.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. And then I was doing both careers simultaneously, and then finally went, you know what, it's time for me to let go of this because it's stopping me from where I'm supposed to go next here. And again, just trusting that, knowing that, and, jumped.
One of the things I love about that, Mary Jo, is that, like that's a long time, right? For that dual career. And you knew when it was time to let it go, and you were okay with having it be that dual career for so long, instead of feeling like you need to make a choice. You have to do something. You're like, I'm saying yes to both until saying yes to both doesn't feel right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And there's nothing like needing to make a choice, to put the boot on the neck, to have the choice come from something other than creativity.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If I need to make a choice, there's a good chance there's going to be a layer of fear or insecurity or something else that's going to drive that if I need to make a choice. Right. And not that there aren't times out there for everybody that's listening. Yes, we all have those. I do need to determine if I'm turning right or left. I do need to determine in these moments, hey, I just got handed this and I have to make a choice here. Of course. But if I can soften that pressure around, I have the opportunity of a choice. I actually have the grace that I even have choices. And then suddenly coming from that place inside, then even the choices I quote unquote need to make actually become more of a privilege. And I'm more about what am I moving towards instead of what am I trying to avoid.
Mm. So, and when it's that get to choose, I get to choose, I'm honored to choose, like, oh,
what a privilege to have a choice. Right. Yeah. Yeah, really and truly.
And so, you talked about grace. And tell me a little bit, because is that a program that you run? Is a program called Grace?
It's called Grace for Women. It's an embodiment workshop. So there's Warriors Councils, the men's version. And it is a 3-day. I just finished one this past weekend. So I'm still like, I still have that. Yeah, totally.
That grace glow. I see the glow.
It really does feel like that, especially, because we're opening up past like what we consider gender normatives, and yet we're still very conditioned around them. So even as we're breaking into this new frontier, it was exhilarating because I had a non-binary that had interfaced with life as a female and like took this work on, because even the choices today that they were making were influenced by the beliefs about what it meant to be female versus what do I choose about it to live as the belief. And when women get in their bodies, not the comparison of their bodies, not the competition of their bodies, not what their bodies should be, but like really come home here. And that is part of the work. That's why I loved that I got a chance to come in and like hang out with you, because I love what you do about that inner wisdom, that inner knowing. We are not conditioned in that. We're not trained in that. In fact, we're so in a sea of cacophony of conditions, beliefs that are handed down culturally, familially, politically, all that's for us to be able to hear ourselves. We're not A, trained in it, and B, we're not even provided a lot of quiet opportunities to go there. So when we do, it seems so unfamiliar. People run back for the noise again because, well, that felt strange, and I don't know how to do this, and da, 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 da. So that after having been with 30 plus women this past weekend, that seeing that needle move from Friday to Sunday, that they created some relationship from wholeness to themselves, that they now have that familiar path back to it whenever they want to practice.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. Those neural pathways that we get to create. And then they become, as we do more and more, they become easier and easier. And, a lot of the healing clients that I've worked with, a lot of the work that I do when I do healings is having people, when they're feeling different feelings, to see where in their body they feel it.
So good.
And it's
so good.
So fascinating, because a lot of times people go, oh my gosh, I feel that in my stomach or my back or my, wherever it is. And they will never have put that together.
Right.
And from that place, then we can heal it in a whole different way.
That's so great. And that awareness that we do carry things physically from the energetic field, it's scientifically proven. It's been spiritualistically proven, and people don't have to choose into it if they don't want to, but it is a really awesome chance to get in there and start to communicate, because location of the body, plus just even the awareness of it, as well as like one of the things I love in that weekend is busting up the word pain. People say I have pain in my shoulder. That actually doesn't mean anything. We use the word pain to mean not okay. Now tell me about the sensations in your shoulder. Oh, well, I have heat and there's a little bit of a buzzing, and there's like when they start to break that down, even the suffering goes down, because now it's not pain. Pain automatically comes with what it comes with. I start breaking it down into, that's interesting. I feel some heat. I feel some buzzing. Oh, you know what? Now that I'm talking about it, it's starting to lessen. It's starting to move. Now it's moved to my middle back. And that whole, like, just to even commune that way, to be able to hear ourselves, because our body's talking to us.
Right.
And we're not trained. We haven't learned the language to actually commune with it. So we're always trying to fix it instead of create with it.
And I don't know if this is something that you've done, right, Jo, but something I've done with people sometimes too, and with myself, is imagine it has a voice. So, check in your shoulder. Okay, that buzzing, that, like, what's it saying? Imagine it actually could talk to you. What would it say? And people are like, I don't know. Well, just imagine, just pretend, make it up. And, because even, where does our imagination comes from? It comes from somewhere. And so all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, that it's saying that I'm not resting enough. It's saying I'm not caring for myself. It's saying I'm carrying too much burden. Oh, does that, what would it be like if you carried a little less burden? Oh, wow. My
it's fun to be able to access those messages and start to tune in. And, one thing I find fascinating, because it happens so regularly, when people start to listen to the body, it's usually, hey, I'm always going to be here, even when you judge me, even when you're not being good to me, even a lot of times what human beings will hear from their bodies when I'm doing this work is, hey, I'm not going anywhere. I mean, I wish you liked me better, but I'm still not going away. Like that, like if I were actually to treat my physical being as a being and commune, a lot of times what the body is saying is, yeah, I know you don't appreciate me. I know you don't really love the way I look, but I'm here for you. And to watch that
message.
To watch that come together and the tears start to roll as, oh my God, I'm so lucky I have this body.
Yeah. What a beautiful reframe. Beautiful. So, one of the things that I love to do on this podcast is help keep the listeners inspired. And I would love to know from you, what keeps you inspired? What keeps you going?
Well, I'm an inspiration junkie. I mean, I just think that is the worthiest, addiction to have, because there's so much around. And I think for me, the quickest way to light me up is, what could I discover in this moment? So to be in constant discovery, even if I'm going on the hiking trail I've been on a million times, what am I going to discover this time? Even if I'm kissing the lips I've kissed 1,000 times, what can I discover this time? Even if I am sitting down having a conversation with somebody I know of, and yet I feel like I already know her, what can I discover about her and about myself in the process? So discovery to me is just juicy and vibrant, and it ignites me and lights me up. So to be in discovery on a regular basis, like literally a daily basis, keeps me inspired. Learning other people's stories is a great inspiration for me, to hear how other people have met life that opens up new possibilities for how I might be able to meet mine. And I do think human beings are complex, messy, ridiculous, unlimited power and possibility in a finite container called life. And that I just am inspired when human beings get that much closer to loving themselves and each other. That keeps me going. That keeps me going when I'm tired.
Oh, I just love that. I love the curiosity and the discovery as a form of inspiration. Mm-hmm. All right. So listeners, just look around you right now in this moment. And even if it's the same old room you've been in a million times, like what is something you could discover? Or what is something that you could, look forward to? Maybe you're going to have a conversation with someone. And wouldn't it be interesting to go from what can I discover?
Or even to piggyback on that with what we were just discovering, listeners, if you heard anything in that about checking in with your physical sensations, what might you discover about your body, about how well it works, about how loyal it is, about how it actually wants to be your teammate and on your side? If you were to just pause and listen, what might you discover about the 50 trillion cells that is you? Because that's a great place to start.
Yes. Oh. All right. I'm going to definitely do a little of that when we're done with this. I'm going to do a little body discovery work. Cool. There's always something to discover.
Yeah. So, when we're fascinated with it, we're just judging it less.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I do.
Nothing that'll like have me go past the, current, losing battle with gravity and, what my shape is now at this age, or, my limitations that are shifting because I'm entering the season of life or whatever. But as soon as I get into, oh my God, so that curry is actually becoming energy right now in my body. And I'm not doing anything. Like, how freaking cool is that? And then pretty soon I'm not looking at the, how many dimples I have in my thighs. I'm just going, what a rocking machine I'm walking around in.
And it's like, and so much of it's like, it's just happening, right?
It's just happening, because not only are we made up of 50 trillion cells, but they know they belong to us.
Yes. Oh, love that. Okay. Very inspiring. Thank you, Mary Jo. Now I'm curious. I want to ask you about your book, but before I do that, I have another question. Could probably talk to you all day, but I am curious to know like something, because you've been doing transformational work for so long. What are some of the aha moments that you've had? What is something, I'm sure there've been many, but if you can think about just something that you feel like you've learned about yourself or the human condition, or, just something that's really been a transformative moment for you.
Sure. That's so fun because, immediately I go, well, how do I pick one? And one jumped right to the top of the pile. So what am I doing? I know which one I'm going with. And that is when I discovered for me, and then was able to bring it out to other people, that the downloaded messages that I carry around from conditioning and beliefs and et cetera, as we talk a lot, because if I'm not willing to challenge those, I am limiting myself. Like this, my dad's stuff doesn't sound like my dad's voice in my head. It's my voice repeating my dad's message.
Yes.
So that's where I used to be really confused about what's my intuition, because but that voice told me, and then this voice told me, and no, I'm not schizophrenic, and I don't actually, but everybody does have.
Everybody does.
The voices in your head. And if you don't believe me, it's the voice that just said, what does she mean? I have a voice in my head. So there you go. That when I began to tap into the intuition thing, especially through the somatic and embodiment work, it was like, they all sound like my voice, but I could hear the authentic one clearly, heard it different. So when I hear that, oh no, or the what if, and it comes up and it sounds similar to my voice, but I can tell the difference between that one and this is my true, authentic creator, aligns with my purpose voice, that intuition. So when I began to own that I am repeating the limiting beliefs, I'm repeating some of the conditioning that's been installed, I am repeating what was passed down generationally in my own voice, it gave me more compassion to start to bypass them. Less blaming, less victim to it, just, oh, there that is again. And now let's get back to the one I'm really here to listen to. And that aha moment of, oh my God, no wonder I couldn't tell the difference. They all sound like me. Now, how do I fine tune even more so authentic me versus regurgitative me? And that take it off from there. And it was and I'm still tuning in. I'll let you know when I'm done. It'll probably happen from the other side because I won't be done till long after I leave this plane. That ability to go, yeah, that does sound like me, but that's not really me, because who I truly am is a creator, not a preventer. Who I truly am is here to be someone I can be proud of, not trying to win accolades. Who I truly am is a lover of life in a way that's infectious. So that development and to listen that way was such a game changer for me, Linda. Like, all kinds of things started to shift after that, including wanting to listen to even the voices that I don't appreciate so that I could learn their tune and their frequency and recognize them sooner before they grab the wheel.
Oh, I love that. That just makes so much sense to me. And it's, I think a lot of times when people are, because I teach classes in intuition, and when they're trying to increase their intuition, it can be really challenging to know what voice am I listening to? For me, I often feel it different in my body.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a straight up and down feeling that I have when it's truth, or it'll actually be things that I wouldn't normally say. Mm-hmm. Where I'm like, oh, who just said that? Because that wouldn't be me. But whereas you're absolutely right, those limiting voices, we take them on. I mean, I hear stuff in my own head that I know would come from maybe one of my parents, but now it's in my head.
Right. And I'm repeating it in my voice, or what the teacher told me, or even like the adults that like got weirded out when I started telling about my experience. Like, I can hear all those. And like I said, that like if you're tuned in, like you are, your physicality that you can actually feel that. So for people that want to practice that is one of the ways you'll be able to true up to it, by learning, getting more familiar with the sensations of what it's like to be, in the authentic, that connection to it. Yeah. You begin to, because again, I get all kinds of physical mnemonics that go, yep, you're on it. You're go. And it's like, sometimes I get that hit where I go, the next thing coming out of my mouth is a lightning bolt from the divine. I have no idea what's coming, but let's everybody buckle up. We're going. And like that, to get to be in that relationship so you can tune into that. If you practice, that's so available. It's so great. I love the way you do that. And for those of you that are listening, she drew her finger from the top of her head down to the middle, like it was the, what do you call those things that you swing on a string?
A pendulum.
Like how Linda tuned straight right into, like, it's coming from the center of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so great.
So yeah, and you're right, different people will feel it or experience it differently. Mm-hmm. So there could be different sounds, right? It could, for some people, that tonal difference is going to come in. For other people, they may see things differently, where there's like light around something and not so much light around something else. Mm-hmm. So depending on how someone's intuition shows up for them, different ways may occur to them to make those distinctions.
Infinite number of access points, and trying them on and practicing is the best way to each person find theirs.
Totally agree. Absolutely. Practice is the key.
Yeah, isn't it? And we fight it. Because it's not sexy. And that's one of the things about the human condition, man. We, in some ways we'd rather, do surgery than physical therapy. When I think about what practice is for how showing up like a human being for the life that I want, I got to do stuff every day. And the ego goes, yeah, let's just go to a 7-day intensive. Right.
Yes.
And then the other days just go by until I go back for the next big hit, instead of, man, every day, just show up every day. And you can build neural pathways. You can build new habits. You can give yourself some structure for the days when you're not feeling as strong. You got some muscle memory going on in there, but practice is really where it's at.
Yes. The gifts of consistency. I've been, the past few months, I've been doing yoga 5 mornings a week.
How's it going?
It's great because, and it's about, most mornings except for Thursdays are like 20, 30 minutes, and it's stretching, and it's all about range of motion. And, you just keep doing it, and you keep showing up, and you keep doing it. And that's the key.
Well, because frankly, if you don't have an intentional practice, guaranteed you're practicing things you don't want. People that don't have an intentional practice, how many days in a row have you been judgmental? All of them.
Yes.
All of them. You know what I mean? Like, so we are practitioners. We're practicing all the time. But the question is what are we
want to be practicing?
And yes, and who's showing up to the practice? So, if my inner brat shows up to my practice, I know it's not going to quite be as nourishing as my
but if she shows up and you still do the practice anyway, maybe by the end you're like feeling less bratty.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about your book, because I am very excited to get a copy of it, to learn all about it. So tell me about practical inspirations and what inspired you to write this book.
It's so funny because I wanted to write a book for so long, and I kept trying to try to give birth to the whole baby at the moment of conception. Like it just was overwhelming and this huge thing and blah, blah, blah. And then somebody actually said to me, what if your book's already written? And I went, oh my God, my book's already written. Like, again, I got one of those boing kind of hits. And the purpose of the book is what needed to be declared. That wasn't, I wrote a book for people to hear themselves. They're my words. They're some of my stories. They're some of my insights. They're opportunities and lenses to try on with life, but it aligns with what my purpose is, which is I don't know the way. I know a way. Try it on so you can create your way. And this book is where the reader meets themselves through the stimuli of what I'm putting out there to kind of shift that focus or tune into a different frequency to hear themselves in a way that provides some insight to what we're working with so we can use that on what we're working towards. And I did a little snarky with the name because there is inspiration everywhere. It's been around since human beings have been around. We go to museums to look at inspirations from thousands of years ago.
Yeah, that's
true. It's
true.
everywhere we look. And yet we read the bumper sticker and then flip off a driver 30 seconds later because that didn't last, because it didn't actually get put into practical application. So the inspirations in this are that, how can I use an inspiration practically when I hear these lofty sayings, or I read the beautiful meme, or I get a Hafiz or a Sufi poem, and I can actually apply that. And then all of a sudden, something really starts to germinate that can be used to impact how I'm living and what I'm creating. So that's the book in a nutshell.
Excellent. It's funny when you said that, because when I read, when I'm driving along and I see a bumper sticker that inspires me, like one of my favorites is "Don't postpone joy." And those do actually really affect me, because I'll be driving along thinking whatever I'm thinking, and I'll see something like that. And I'm like, that's right. Like right now in this moment while I'm driving is a great moment to have joy.
That's how you do it. You embody it. So it's not a passing thought. Exactly. It's not a concept. As soon as it's embodied, now it's actually something that's creating real impact.
Right. And that's exactly what I try to do with things like that, because it's like, oh, right. It just reminds me, you'd think, right? After all these years and all this stuff and all this personal growth, but I need reminders all the time.
We all do. That's why, thank God, we're in this together.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we can raise each other up and remind each other that there's so much beauty and so many things that we get to experience in this life, and that so much of it's framing, right? When the things are difficult, and, difficult things happen, and we get to go through our pain. And, I'm someone who believes you play the whole 88 keys on the piano. All feelings are good feelings, even if we don't love them. And that there's always possibilities to frame it from, how can this serve me? How can I grow from this? How is this a gift?
Yep. And that can be a lot to swallow given situations that human beings are in. So we're not here to tell anybody that losing a loved one's got to be wrapped up with a bow.
Right.
So the fact of the matter is, if we're willing to use what's here, we'll create with it, even if it's pain, even if it's not what I wanted or not what I was expecting, or, but that level of engagement with life, that showing up to life that way, that I would use this right here, right now, because it's part of my bigger picture, is such a life affirming way to live. And it is challenging. That is why we're in it together, so that we can lean on each other like this. Because tomorrow might be my day, Linda, when I'm calling you up and going, listen, I'm the one I don't trust right now. So talk to me. I'm stuck in my stuff, right? So
Right.
I'm not the one I should be listening to, kind of thing. And I do feel like that ability for us to be in that with each other, so that I'm actually using what's happening right now instead of feeling used by it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And of course, absolutely, you're right. I mean, there are moments and times and maybe months where we have to go through whatever the pain is that happens, because sometimes life is painful.
But when we're not resisting the pain,
Right.
we don't increase our suffering.
Right.
Resisting pain actually has us increase our suffering, because it makes it wrong. Just like I said, like I've just bust up that word, because it is a thing. Pain is inevitable. It is part of the human experience, physically, mentally, and emotionally. It is. But suffering, we can increase like maniacs, and often do,
Yes.
out of the resistance of the pain instead of what is it here to serve. Because that,
and loving
it is
ourselves through it, loving, in the same way you're talking about the body, right? Like loving the dimples on my thighs. Look how cute they are.
Aren't they adorable?
Dimples on my cheek, just on my thighs. And when we can be in love with even the parts of life, parts of ourselves, the parts of our experience. And again, this is a practice. This is not an easy thing that we're talking about. But when we can at least aspire to falling in love with everything, then
because our realities are made up of our interpretation.
Yeah.
There's actually very few facts.
Yes.
There are very few facts. It's why the news industry is what it is today. There are very few facts. It is mostly opinion. It is mostly my experience of the fact that creates our reality. So that choice point to take ownership of how I can use that for, good instead of evil. Bring back cartoons from when I was a kid. I want to twirl my mustache right now. that framing, as you say, that paradigm shift, that is a direct impact to the quality of your life, because the quality of your life doesn't come from the circumstances. It comes from how you're meeting them.
Absolutely. Yeah. The stories that we tell.
Mm-hmm.
I love working with people to help them come up with a story where they're the hero instead of where they're the victim. And it's such a powerful transformation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, all right. Yeah. Because we all get to be the heroes of our own stories, I believe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And already are. That's the thing. Whether you're telling the story that way or not, you're already the hero.
Yeah.
Maybe you're the unwilling to see, that's why we love those movies so much. It's the unassuming young boy that pulls the sword out of the stone. Because that is what we all know on some level is us. And I might not be showing up like a hero in this moment, or I might be the one that's least convinced I'm a hero. Doesn't make it untrue.
Right. Yes. We all have those qualities that we all have the ability to really look at and interpret a situation in so many different ways. And so why not interpret it in a way that's loving and kind and inspiring?
If that's what's working for you, then that is exactly where you should go. Indeed.
All right. So if someone wants to get practical inspirations, Mary Jo, what should they do?
That's it's on Amazon. So you can look up Practical Inspirations and my name on Amazon. You can go to maryjolorei.com. There's also a direct link that takes you how to purchase the book and tells you a little bit more about what I'm up to. So those are two ways.
Fantastic. And if anyone, I, of course, in the show notes, there will be Mary Jo's contact info. So if you want to reach out to her about anything, you can. And is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners that I haven't asked you about?
If you haven't already, Congratulate yourself for listening to a podcast like this. Because if you're even tuning into this, it's because part of you already knows you deserve to be supported and having the life you've always wanted. And good for you. And I'll bet that's probably not the only thing you should congratulate yourself on about today. So do it. Do it. Showing up. Asking questions about being your best self. Wondering where else, who else, how else I could elevate my life is a big deal. And I'm celebrating you. I hope you're celebrating you.
Yes. All right. I love that. Absolutely. So listeners, you got two people in this moment celebrating you. And I know there's going to be others who are cheering you on, the guides, the whoever else on the universe it has your back. So yes, please, as always, subscribe, share this with your friends, let other people know, because I think Mary Jo and I are both here to help many people live an inspired life and to feel amazing about yourselves. So thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Mary Jo, for being such an awesome, fun guest. This was fantastic.
Thank you so much, Linda. This was so much fun and so easeful. I had a blast.
Me too. All right. So listeners, check out Mary Jo, get practical inspirations, and stay tuned for future podcasts coming to you soon.
Thanks so much for listening. Be sure to leave a review and share this podcast. To learn more or to book a personal session with Linda, go to innerclarity.biz or click the link in the show notes. And may you always trust your wisdom.